From Morocco, we flew to Egypt, landing in Cairo and staying for 3 nights, then flying to Aswan for 5 nights, hopping a 3-night Nile cruise to Luxor, staying for 7 nights, then hiring a car to go to Hurghada for 3 nights before flying back to Cairo for our final 2 nights. In this video, we'll talk about where we stayed, what we saw, what were our lessons learned, and how much it cost. The first place we stayed was right by the Pyramids of Giza. A nice basic hotel that had a spectacular, if not completely unobstructed, view of the pyramids every morning at breakfast. In Aswan, we stayed in the middle of the Nile River on Elephantine Island, accessible only by boat, in the wonderfully peaceful Nubian Soul guest house. And of course, when we cruised down the Nile, we stayed on the ship. After the cruise, we stayed on the West Bank in Luxor, in an efficiency apartment, and the rooftop had views of sunrise over the Nile and sunset over Valley of the Kings. When we moved to Hurghada on the Red Sea coast, we got a resort apartment right on the sea. Our last 2 days in Cairo before leaving Egypt, we stayed in a Hyatt hotel, mainly so we knew we had a comfortable bed, as the one in Hurghada was not great. We'll do detailed videos for our major stops in Egypt, but here are the highlights. We started our Egyptian exploration west of Cairo in Giza, touring the iconic pyramids by camel and climbing down inside one. Our next stop was the Grand Egyptian Museum, or GEM, a truly world-class museum that's well organized, well presented, and well labeled. And the English language guided tour from a trained Egyptologist gave us a thorough overview. Next, we visited the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, still an excellent museum, but much older and more poorly labeled compared to the GEM. Our first lesson was that a daily view of the pyramids is a perfect way to get into the ancient Egyptian mood. And there are many hotels, 3-star to 5-star, that provide this. One thing we didn't account for was that the camels that tourists ride are stabled outside of the pyramid complex, and they line up each morning in the street in front of our hotel. And while they do wash the street daily, every morning it was a slimy, smelly walk to get anywhere. So we would avoid anywhere along this street. And we were very glad that we saw the GEM before the Egyptian Museum. With the context of our guided tour that the GEM provided, we appreciated the Egyptian a lot more, particularly the mummies and papyrus collections. In Aswan, the entire southern tip of Elephantine Island was an archaeological museum with some buildings dating back to the oldest era of ancient Egypt. We also hired a felucca to ride along the Nile, and took another boat to Philae Temple, the last functioning temple to the Egyptian gods. But maybe the biggest highlight was a 3.5-hour ride to Abu Simbel, some of the most impressive temples you can ever see. Our days in Elephantine Island were the most relaxing of our time in Egypt, the only time we didn't feel constantly harassed by vendors. We booked all of our Aswan tours through the Rest House, private tours for less than the price of group tours through Viator or another third party. And we could time our tours to avoid the crowds of the group tours. We also booked our 3-night Aswan to Luxor Nile cruise through our Aswan Rest House, and the Nile itself was the highlight. Spending 3 days on the river that fueled one of humankind's greatest civilizations was magical. There was a scheduled stop at the Kom Temple, but our boat was a late arrival, so we were content to watch the crowds from afar. Similarly, for our arrival at Edfu Temple the next morning, we were near the very end of a long line of boats, so we just did Tai Chi on the deck. We paid $450 total for our cruise, and you can pay up to quadruple that through travel companies. Tipping for the staff was extra. We'll do a more complete video on our cruise with all our tips and lessons learned, but these were the highlights. Our Nile cruise ended in Luxor, often called the world's greatest open-air museum because of the number of ancient Egyptian sites that are clustered in the area, and we saw a lot of them. We visited Luxor Temple our first night, tagging along with some friends we'd made on our cruise and their guide, who we then hired ourselves to see the Valley of the Kings, the mortuary temple of Hatshepsut, and the Valley of the Queens for $50 US. We then decided to add on the Valley of the Artisans for another $20 US, where we saw some of the most incredibly colorful tomb paintings of all in ancient Egypt. We visited the temple complex of Karnak on our own, the most visited ancient Egyptian site after the Giza Pyramid Complex. The west bank of the Nile in Luxor is much quieter than the east bank, and closer to most of the archaeological sites because the fastest access east to west is across the Nile via private boat or ferry. Private guides are affordable if you book directly, and you can customize your itinerary. But it's best to get a referral versus finding one randomly. Group tours through websites like Viator and Get Your Guide are usually more expensive, $50 US or more per day per person, but they're best if you have limited time, and be ready to pack all your sightseeing into long days from early morning to night. And whenever we were without a guide, we were accosted by touts and vendors so tenacious they're exhausting. And be sure to include the Valley of the Artisans if you can. The tomb art is absolutely amazing. Our goal for Hurghada was to just relax by the Red Sea, which we did wonderfully. And relaxation was the same goal for our last 2 days in Cairo before flying out. It was incredible to see the wonders of ancient Egypt, but modern Egypt exhausted us, and we were happy our time was over. Our total costs for 24 days in Egypt were $3,418. That's $1,139 per week, or $142 per day. Tours included all entries and guide fees, and transport included all ferries, local taxis, and our domestic flights, but not flights in and out of Egypt. We divided the $450 cruise between food, lodging, and transport, and our splurge on the Hyatt in Cairo was a third of the total lodging. There are always trade-offs when touring Egypt. Overall, we're glad we saw it the way we did, mostly a do-it-yourself approach with longer stays in Aswan and Luxor.